That's really our primary objective here, is to grow soil. Because if you grow good soil, everything else falls into place. You grow good plants, you grow good animals, you grow good people, you grow good trees.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm at Inspiration Farm in Northwest Washington in Bellingham with Brian Kirkfleet. Thank you for joining me again.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
And it's been a treat to be here among you for several weeks. Brian, I noticed on your land, which slopes sort of gently that away, that up near the top here you've got ditches and things. So show us what are we seeing here?
What this is a system permaculture design system to capture water and nutrient flow, and does many functions. It creates contour in the landscape that maximizes your water zones and maximizes your land zones. So in this paddock, before I did any of the earthwork, it was pretty much a solid swamp. You would sink up to your ankle, or the cow would go up to her knee.
So water coming down this hillside would just
would stagnate and swamp, because there's a heavy clay layer underneath. And so what I did is I dug these ditches or swales on contour in the landscape, and that broke through that clay layer a little bit. And what it does is it slows, spreads, and sinks the water.
Slows.
As the water
flows down and it catches here in these ditches, right, when it rains, or and so it slows it from
just going off-site. And then it spreads it along contour, so it has a lot of edge area that comes in contact with different elements.
And contour means that this is sort of basically level.
It's level. Keep it level. Contour means level. So if you picture a topographic map and there's contour lines that go along, this is essentially a portion of those contours on level line in the landscape. So that slows the water, spreads it, and sinks it. So we're actually taking some of that water and allowing it to recharge our aquifer to allow slow percolation down in, but also it rehydrates the earth downslope. And so along this edge, I've just put in this spring young willow trees that will grow up, and those will pull up water and transpire it out into the atmosphere. But this is mainly designed to be an animal paddock. So we're not really trying to grow food or whatever. We are trying to grow food for the animals. So the willow is an animal fodder that they can graze over and over, and it'll resprout and resprout. And it'll stabilize this bank.
So the roots in the willow, well, you see it at every streams all over, and in the wilds, you know.
Exactly.
And the branches, do you clean those out?
No, these are branches that I've intentionally left in, and that provides habitat for frog eggs and other water critters, bugs and stuff, to lay their eggs or their young, and provides some protection so the ducks don't eat all of them. And in the spring, it's just a chorus of frogs chirping and
So you're creating not just food for the animals, you're creating habitat for the wilder critters.
Yes,
I mean, it feels like a whole system here. So on this, here's another on contour, right, swale?
So all of these swales are connected in the way that the water flows. So when this swale fills up, it'll fill up and it'll breach over here and flow down. Then it's collected again in this other swale. And then when this one fills up, it'll overflow through a pipe actually and go into the pond. And when that fills up, it'll overflow and go into the next, and so forth, and cascade on down through the property. And in each stage, it slows, spreads, and sinks water and nutrients. Because our animals are all upslope, this is kind of the higher portion of our property. And so it captures and passively, evenly distributes all that nutrient-rich water throughout our whole growing system.
So your cow poop up in the upper pasture,
And our duck poop, and our
you're
frog
right.
poop, and our, all of the critters.
just keeps moving on
Yep.
down through the whole landscape.
Yep.
Really?
Yep. And not just animal byproduct nutrients, but you can see leaves get trapped in there, branches, dead grasses, bugs that die, all of these things, because it's a low depression and a good part of the year it's covered in water. Anything that touches that water, it's stuck. It's not blowing away anymore.
Okay.
So anything that blows through the winter or whatever, it lands in the ditch on the swale, and it becomes part of the soil that builds in that water system. So in areas, I actually periodically harvest that nutrient-rich soil out of the
Really?
bottom of the swale and bring it down to the gardens.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
So
I mean, you're just,
it's a
you're
multiple
just keeping it
function.
moving,
Yep.
moving.
Yep.
Well, speaking of gardens, is this a good moment to see, some of the recent earthworks and the gardens below?
Yeah, sure. This just might say this has been established for about 3 years, and it's mostly been used as pasture. And as a result of this, it has dried up the earth in between, which used to be pretty much solid buttercup, which is a water-loving plant. And we couldn't graze any animals here. Now there's hardly any buttercup. It's clover and fescue, and the animals can graze in through here. So we've concentrated the land and concentrated the water and made a diverse set of ecosystems that can get this symbiotic relationship going. But you can also do this system to grow food crops for humans. And let's go see some of that.
Okay. Thanks.
The other thing is, I've realized after doing this, this becomes a nursery. So because all the
sure.
seeds fall in here, so those are alder trees, there's some willows, those are all self-seeded in here. So there's more and more alders. I've harvested alders and black locusts and willows
For the
and
wood.
hawthorn from swales that just naturally self-seed, because it gets the leaf litter and the seed pods, and everything gets trapped there, and it has the moisture, and it just germinates.
What I see, which is probably very, very permaculture, is everything finding their place. They volunteered, they're here, and you have a place to bring them into another level of use.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like functions on top of functions.
Yeah.
Hey.
So Janaea, this is the exit point here from all that water that we caught in the swales, cascades through all those swales, and it exits out through here. And we have it come through a culvert because this is a cow lane. The cow walks across,
lane, okay,
so we can't have water going surface.
Right.
So the last pond, when that reaches its full point, it will exit out through here. And as it comes through here, we've spread wood chips a couple years ago. And in the wood chips, we inoculated with Winecap stropharia mushrooms, which they don't like it really in the wet zone, but sometimes, like over here, you can see some of the mycelium
Oh,
and
mushrooms, mushroom
strand.
parts, yeah.
And so we do that just to help break down some of the nutrients and spread that nutrient load out through the surrounding area.
And you've got the duck pond is one of your last points, right?
Yeah.
So you got a whole lot of duck poop.
Well, there's duck and there's cow manure
sure.
and there's,
Okay.
the goats are up in this paddock sometimes. So
okay.
it's our whole mishmash of nutrient flow that comes
all
through
right.
there.
So when it comes down through here and comes through the mushrooms, what happens?
Well, the mycelium break down a lot of the more complex compounds, and the mycelial network helps spread those nutrients to plants that need it. They form associations with, I've got apple trees planted here, willows, which will be animal fodder, and other trees planted around in the surrounding area. So it helps, it's a distribution network in a way.
Oh, underground.
Underground.
Underground. So you said, it can go quite a ways.
Quite a ways. Yeah, we've had huge flushes of Winecap stropharia mushrooms pop up here, but now they're starting to pop up way over there and way over there.
So they're just distributing themselves over there and doing their work.
They're going, hey, there's food over there and there's food over there, and I'm gonna flower and fruit.
Yeah.
And so we're really happy to, through a very simple process of inoculating a couple scoops of wood chips, that they've become resident here in our system.
Yum.
Yeah. Let's go see the rest. All right, Janaea, so here we are on the more western portion of the property, which has its own drainage.
Oh, I see, yeah, a little...
Kind of comes down into this little valley. And there's a ridge line here that separates the two drainages that come onto the property. So what I've done is captured this drainage in this pond here in order to catch and store and hold and sink that water.
Okay.
But also it's connected to a swale system that brings the water to the higher portion of the property that tends to be drier. So this is more like on a ridge or a crest,
Okay.
very subtly, but enough so that it doesn't get as much moisture into the soil as I would like, because this is part of our main crop garden area down below here.
Below in here,
Yeah.
okay.
So the way this swale system works is when this pond fills up in the wintertime, it will crest and crest right here where these rocks are.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the level will come right up to here, and this is what's called a level spillway. So this is the spillway, and it's wide, and it's fairly level. So when the water level of the pond reaches here, it will slowly, passively cascade across here into the swale.
Just a very gentle slope.
Very gentle slope.
So slow.
So and by having it wide rather than narrow, you slow that water so it doesn't have an erosive effect.
Okay, all right.
And the rocks are there to help catch debris and kind of pacify the water.
Okay.
So then it'll fill this swale all the way, which again is on contour. It'll fill it all the way to the far side, which happens to be close to the ridge line.
Okay, all right.
So it brings this water from the valley towards,
up towards
the
ridge. So it's like a little dam by being the ridge is a stop.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And then if it stops raining and the water starts to subside in the pond, all the water that's still in this swale, because of this little rise here, it can't flow back into the pond.
So it stays.
sits in the swale.
Okay.
And then this mound on the downhill slope is all soft earth. That was the earth that came from the swale. It was put up there. It's very soft and porous, and it will soak up all that moisture and help hold it in the soil and continue that water downslope from this area.
Beyond that mound.
Yep.
Now there's a lot of plants in that mound.
Yeah, so let me just begin by saying we dug this summer in 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
We dug it, we planted it with the cover crop and 25 fruit and nut tree species.
Whoa,
and berry bushes and everything. So it's completely planted right now.
That is, ambitious. It sounds to me.
It's 3 days, not even full-time days.
That's exciting to have that you could do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible. The cover crop mix was just a wide variety of peas and vetch and fava beans and kale and sunflowers and just.
Why did you choose? Why that particular set of cover crops? What are they doing here?
The high leguminous cover crops are nitrogen fixers, so they really help build soil fast.
Okay.
There's also a lot of carbaceous plants in there, so there's rye and oats, buckwheat. Those are all really good cover crops that help build a root mass in that soil to establish very fast carbon pathways so that the long-term crops, the trees, can just flourish and just rocket right up. So in addition to the peas and the other nitrogen fixers that are in there as annual crops, there's also nitrogen fixing trees that I put in that are short term, medium term. They're going to turn into trees, black locust, alder, other overstory trees that I will cut out after a certain period of time, after the fruit trees get nicely established.
So they are part of helping to what, stabilize the ground, or
Stabilize this ground, but they're also, those trees are nitrogen fixers.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
they're fast growing, and so they will provide some shade and stability for the understory trees.
The fruit trees.
The fruit trees are slower and longer to become established.
I mean, it's just like, Brian, I'm sure, I mean, permaculture principles applied here, but it's like the multiple things you had to think about is, I guess, what astounds me here.
Yeah, and you look at what does well in your climate. What do you like to eat? You know, you start with what do you like to eat, and what can you plant here? You know, I can't plant avocado trees. I do have some figs and some some kiwis and some Asian pears.
You're trying to push those.
That's it. That's it.
What I observe here, I mean, is that the zone below it, you have more beds of what, also on contour?
They're also on contour, and those. So this berm is designed to be a perennial system.
Perennial, okay.
Right. So the perennial system is supported right now by the young cover crop that is an annual.
Okay.
And it's mostly edible annual.
Yeah,
so
I see there's lots of kale.
We have kale, we have buckwheat, there's pea shoots. So even right now you're getting a yield out of it. And then I'll end up harvesting some seeds to save for later and feed a lot of this to my chickens as well.
Okay.
But this is primarily designed to be a perennial system. So this will be a tree shelter belt, good to go
From
for
here
the
for
long
100
haul.
Yeah.
These are designed to be annual beds.
Okay.
So, and these are contoured.
So they're
bed.
catching the water and holding
Little
the-
bits, little bits, little
right.
bits. But it's also getting water that's soaking in deeper upslope and cascading down subsoil.
And so you've got a few. I mean, this is fall. Things are. You've got your beds covered for winter
Mulch down.
with what, straw?
Well,
and
mostly hay, and then we have been cleaning out the animal shelters for winter. So there's some manured hay from the bedding.
So here's some of what remains from this summer's annuals, right?
Right. Yep. Some lettuce and some cabbage and some kale and some.
You know, as I look across this landscape, you know, you've got these annuals and you've got corn and you've got hoop houses that had tomatoes and basil and so on. What did occur, and fruit trees and grape. I mean, it seems to me that you've got thousands of varieties of of plants that you're trying out.
Definitely
see
hundreds.
What works here.
Definitely hundreds.
Maybe
thousands of
varieties.
types of varieties.
Yeah. That you're trying to find what works in your landscape, your weather, etc. And pushing some of those edges.
Definitely pushing the edges, and definitely looking at establishing the systems that are, once established, are self-maintaining.
Okay,
So
it's as perennial as much as possible?
Perennial as much as possible, no tillage as much as possible, passive nutrient water distribution systems as much as possible, animal integration that does some of the key roles of turning composts and fertilizing and weed and pest control, all those types of things that most annual farmers get out there and have to do all the time.
So, no till. I mean, you're letting the land, by your working this, you know, the soil and what you're planting and annuals. It sounds like you're sort of trying to reduce that work and not disturb, you know, the and our growing soil as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really our primary objective here, is to grow soil. Because if you grow good soil, everything else falls into place. You grow good plants, you grow good animals, you grow good people, you grow good trees.
You know, you have been doing that, haven't you?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
That's what it feels like is happening here on the whole farm.
And you know, finding the niches that each element works the best. So we don't till, the worms till, and the moles till. You know, because we keep the soil covered, the worms can come right up to the surface and aerate everything, and they're helping break down that mulch layer down into the soil, so the soil becomes more
Accessible.
organic and acid content and all that. So.
Brian, the beds behind us are really, I mean, the nice shape of the curves. Is that for fun, for beauty, for practical?
Well, it's practical and it's beautiful, and that's
is.
the love of it. It's
Why are they curved?
they're curved because we place all of our beds on contour. So on contour means level,
Right. So
perfectly level, or in this case, slightly off level. So we try and draw moisture that flows down the valley, which is right here. It's a little bit hard to
I
see.
see. It's a little
bit
down,
lower
yeah.
than over there.
Right.
So there's a little bit moisture that flows down the valley. We try and pull that moisture towards the ridge. So these aren't totally perfectly level, but they're really close.
Okay.
So it slightly goes downhill towards the ridge. And so we survey the land, and then we survey each of the paths. And we do that with an A-frame level. That's a very simple thing to build and to use, and people can look that up on YouTube and find out about A-frame levels. For broader areas, you can use a transit level or a laser level. And then you don't have to do every single bed. You can do every 50 feet or every 100 feet, and then kind of echo those contour lines. If people aren't familiar with this, they can picture what a topographic map looks like. It has a curvature as it goes around in a valley and out a ridge and in a valley. So that's kind of what we try and mimic. So essentially these are like micro terraces.
Okay.
So and then in this system, what it does for our growing system is it harvests moisture and nutrients. So in the path is the low cool spot.
Down here.
Yeah, down in the path
I
is
see.
the low cool spot.
Okay.
So any cool air will fall and drop in there.
Okay.
And then with the mulch, it actually creates a lot of surface area.
In the mulch areas.
Well, anywhere there's mulch, which is also in the path.
Oh, in here. All right.
Yep. And in those areas where there's a lot of surface area, it condenses moisture. So even in the height of summer, in the driest part of the year, in those cool, moist areas that have a lot of surface area, you can come in the morning and feel dew just sponging off of that surface.
I mean, we're at the end of summer, but it's moist.
Yeah. So it sheds water, it retains water, and it stores nutrients. So any nutrient flow, whether it's wild birds that fly through and
Poop here.
lay their blessings on our beds, or nutrient flow from our animals up slope, or water that rains down and carries nutrient load with it, it gets trapped. It doesn't run off-site. It doesn't go to the ditch at the end of the road and out to the river and out to Puget Sound and create an overabundant dead zone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the swales are like the macro system of this type, but all of our beds mimic that in a micro system.
When you've got a lot of the earth sculpting, done, the swales, the earthworks, then what?
Well, there's a wide variety of things that we do, but mainly we try and cultivate systems that feed the soil. So the soil is the lifeblood. The soil is the soul. So the soul is the soul of the plants, the soul of the animals, and the soul of us. And so we try to do everything possible to make sure that soil is fulfilled in the highest level. One of the main things we try and do here to maintain soil health is minimal compaction. So that means basically no tilling, no tractors, no heavy animal compaction, or very little. Sometimes we'll graze our cows through very quickly and allow them to fertilize and graze off the top areas, but then quickly move off. So especially in wet seasons, we don't want any of that heavy compaction. The other thing is we want to cycle nutrients as quickly as possible. So that means when the grass gets too tall, we want to cut that down, allow that to dry off, become carbaceous material, carbon material, that then gets returned to the soil. So that in the process of cutting that grass, the roots slough off underground, and you get sequestration of the carbon. You build topsoil faster
from cutting.
Yeah, from cutting. So either you graze the grass down very low, and that creates a root slough, where equal amounts of top get sloughed. If it's cut or grazed, it gets sloughed off underneath, and that builds the topsoil. It creates a very loose, organic, carbaceous, rich organic layer on the top of the soil. So if we can't graze it thoroughly, then we use appropriate hand tools to cut that grass, namely the scythe and the rake. And then we harvest that grass either for animal fodder and take it to them in the appropriate seasons, or we take that grass and we use it as mulch for our annual beds and feed the soil in those beds. And it's amazing how much of that material gets digested down by the soil over the winter period, which is where we put on the majority of our mulch. So we'll put sometimes up to a foot of mulch on our beds in the fall, and that'll get digested down to maybe 2 to 3 inches by the time we say pull our garlic or something in June to July, August. And so we are really truly feeding our soil, and you can tell that. You pull back the mulch, you see the worms right up to the surface. You see the soldier beetles and all the other macroorganisms in the soil. They feel comfortable, they can come right to the surface. It suppresses weeds, it just maintains that loft in the soil structure, and it creates that beautiful organic crumbly soil structure in our annual beds through the intensive mulching.